All right, we're picking up session 2 with chapter 9, situational leadership training and development. Chapter 9's overview, we talked about effective cycle and ineffective cycle, determining performance readiness and relationship behavior. All right, with an effective cycle, you have high expectations and with high performance, and then an ineffective cycle, you have the low expectations and low performance. And I'm trying to where high expectations result with high performance, which reinforces the high expectations and produces even higher productivity. And I like the charts on page 163. You know, you can always spiral up with the high expectations and high performance, but you can also spiral right back down with the low expectations and low performance. And then with determining a performance readiness, it talked about how, you know, you might have that high relationship and a low task, or you start off with high task and high relationship, which it said if a manager wants to influence a staff member in an area which the person is both unable and unwilling, which would be the low performance readiness level, the manager must begin the developmental cycle by directing, controlling, and closely supervising the staff member's behavior. And then you go to the next stage, if the person is willing to do something but is not able to do it, which is still the low to moderate performance readiness. The manager must begin the cycle by both directing and supporting the desired behavior. And if the person is able to do something without direction but is unwilling to do it or is insecure, then you are faced with the motivational problem. And then finally, if the staff members are both able and willing to direct their own behavior, you can merely delegate responsibilities to them and know that they will perform well. So the takeaways that I found with this chapter, as an administrator, you're not able, you can't make that teacher jump readiness level overnight. It takes a process. It talks about how a scenario in the book that a teacher or administrator had a teacher starting out with the stage 1 where, you know, they're both unable and unwilling, and it took her over a year to get to the next level or to even go past the next level. So it is a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. And then as a leader, do not delegate too much responsibility too fast. You also need to know who you can delegate things to, and for me personally, I need to delegate more as a leader. The questions, as a leader, how would you determine what performance readiness level your staff members are? And I think for me, it's like you have to get to know that person. You have to know what they're capable of doing, and it's different for every staff member. You might have a veteran teacher that, you know, they get burnt out and don't want to do it. They can do it, but they don't want to do it. So you kind of have to make it where it's more interesting for them to do it and more rewarding for them to do it. But then again, you have those beginning teachers that they unwilling because they maybe don't like doing things in front of people or do it just very uncomfortable, and they might not know how to do it. So you just have different levels, and you have to know your staff to determine those readiness levels.
Basically, what you said, it says you have to know the person's ability and willingness. The book says you can ask a person to observe the person's behavior, or you can ask the person such questions as, how well do you think you're doing at such and such? How do you feel about doing that? Are you not enthusiastic or excited about it? So it depends on where they stand.
Right.
For the most part.
Is it my turn?
Sorry, I didn't know if you were still there, David.
No, I'm still here. I was just thinking. Yeah, I think you're right on the nose, LaShonda. Like, when it comes to performance level, just talk to them. You know, like you You need to be present. And I think it's more than talk, it's also observing.
Right.
I think it's important that when you sit down with a staff member, because you're talking about delegating more or putting them in charge of something or like that, you need to be able to back it up with, hey, this is what I have observed. Is this true and correct? Or is this whatever? Like if I want to task someone, like if I want somebody to coach, right? Then I need to come in and say, hey, look, I know you've been involved with this program. You know the way things work. That's why I want you to coach here. Because I think that, you need to have the person's input as well as observations to reach from or to pull from, if that makes sense. Because you don't want to throw a first year teacher into like a coaching position because it's just going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking right now.
Question? Oh, sorry.
What I was thinking when I going through grad school, and then I decided to coach softball this year. So, and I'm not even a first year teacher, So I know what kind of responsibility it is for me. So I can only imagine if you're trying to throw a first year teacher into a coaching position, it's very hard.
Yeah. Second question is, how would you motivate your staff to be high task and high relationship? I think the biggest thing, and I think what my platform for my administrative career will definitely be empowerment. Because and it could just be me, but when I'm excited about something, I will move heaven and earth because I think it's cool. Like we got iPads, and I was like, I want to do stuff with them. We're gonna do news articles and books and journals and this and that and whatever. And it's like, I think it's important that when you have a staff member who is engaged, who is, pumped up about something, that you can go ahead and put the expectation out there and say, hey, look, this is really great. We're going to get you some resources. We need you to go ahead and knock this out, if that makes sense. Because if you take someone who's not empowered and who doesn't want to be there and doesn't want to do it, they're going to do a terrible job.
Right.
And I think that it's hard to have that high task, high relationship because, if you think about a boat, like if a school is the boat, right? And the teachers are the sail, and they push the sails here, and it pushes the boat, and the principal or the administrator is the guy at the back driving. I think it's important that, if wind is positivity and motivation, then, you've got to have that for anything to function. Because if you're negative, you might as well just get the oars out and start rowing it yourself. And that's when, that sail's not working hard. It's just flapping in the wind because there's no positivity. There's no empowerment, right? And then you as administrator, you're having to work extra hard rowing that boat, So it's important to have, once again, just to recap, that empowerment is crucial, positivity, and also capitalizing on that. Because it's if you task someone with something that they're pumped up about and they do a great job and you notice it, you reward it, you can use that as a building block to say, hey, look, when you were talking about doing this digital learning thing, you threw it together and it was fantastic. The staff really, benefited from it. I personally enjoyed it. How would you feel about doing something like this? And then that teacher's like, yeah, I did a damn good job, didn't I? I want to do more of that. Yeah, fantastic. And I think that's how you start to channel that positivity and that creativity and that empowerment. The big thing is just getting people empowered, which, I don't know. Thoughts?
I agree. I think that is a big factor when you're wanting your staff to be that high task and high relationship. You have to have the motivation and the support. The teachers need that support. And if you don't give them that support, they're not going to want to go out and do that extra step or go that extra mile for you.
Yeah. And I would say going back to task and relationship oriented, you have to be focused on the goals focus on the goals, the achievement, also, like you said, the motivation, the satisfaction and the well-being of the team members of the group.
All right. So that moves us to chapter 10, the situational leader and constructive discipline. The overview for this chapter: the regressive cycle, the ability and willingness in the developmental and regressive cycles, and then disciplining an individual. So the regressive cycle, interventions that leaders need to make when individuals or groups are becoming less effective. The ability and willingness in the developmental and regressive stages. As people grow in their tasks, the behaviors they need from the leader, that they change. And then when you discipline an individual, there's some steps that you can take that they talked about in the book, which I thought was very interesting because we got some situations going on now at school where they're trying to discipline an individual. You have to make the intervention very timely. You can't wait to do anything about a situation. The emotional level is different for constructive discipline than it is for developing people. So when you're developing people, you're attempting to expand the present ability of the follower. And then keeping the focus on the performance. It said in the book that don't attack personality. Focus more on the performance. If you attack a personality and the person becomes angry, the probability of successfully working with the person will be much lower. And do your homework. You want to know. It talked about about performance problems that are also important. Keeping it private. You don't want to know. You don't want the whole school to know what's going on with a certain individual. So you need to make sure that is going on behind closed doors. And then it talked about punishment and negative reinforcement. Punishment is talked about earlier is a negative consequence, and then a negative consequence tends to weaken the action. It immediately follows. So the takeaways for this: focus on performance, not the personality of the teacher. Use a leadership style appropriate for your followers, and then use the positive discipline. And then also there's 3 steps to follow. Warn the employee orally, warn the employee in writing, and then in step 1 and 2 fail to resolve the problem. You give the employee, you more of have a sit down talk with them and document it. Then the discussion questions: have you ever had the ability and not the willingness? And then have you ever had the willingness but not the ability? And I could just give an example if you can think of any.
Is this as a leader or as someone within a system?
I would say as a leader, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, here you go. Have you ever had the ability and not the willingness? Yes, absolutely. At my school, I'm good with technology. And like there have been times, and this is like really wrong of me or whatever, when people have asked for help and I've forgotten about it, or I haven't done it, or I've done whatever, because there was a training on it. You talk through the training. There was a video sent out on how to set up your grade book. You didn't watch it. There was another session where it was whole group. You come in, you didn't come. And, now because you did not take the proper steps to make sure your stuff was handled, I'm giving up my parts of my planning period. And I have the ability, but you got to figure it out yourself. Because one thing I've learned is that a lot of teachers are lazy, and if they can put it off and wait and have somebody else do it for them, they will.
Yeah.
And that's,
I've had that happen to me too.
Yeah, and it's a jerk thing to do.
Yeah, especially with technology, because there's another EC teacher she's been teaching for 30 plus years, and she has no clue on how to work a smart board, how to work a MacBook, how to hook up anything to the MacBook or the projector or anything. So it's like I've showed that person several times, and it's like it goes right over the top of their head for the next time they try to do it.
Well, and it's like, there's a yeah.
When do you get to that point where it says, pay attention next time?
Yeah. Well, and it's like there have been people that I've worked with in the past, and it's like, hey, this is what we're doing. Hey, can you show me how to put that into, this online system? And it's like, I've showed you 3 times. I made a video about it. He's like, yeah, didn't want to watch the video. And I'm like,
yeah.
When it looks at the willingness but not the ability, this happened to me Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm on Science Olympiad. No idea why. I'm a social studies teacher and I'm terrible at it. But I can talk. I'm really good at talking. I'm really terrible at hands doing things. I don't know. But I'm helping a student build a Rube Goldberg device, which combines 6 different simple machines into a 15-step process. It's like a marble rolling down a plank that knocks over a domino that does all this crap. And I'm like super willing. I will do whatever needs to happen, but I don't know how to tool. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Duct tape? It's like right now the project is like duct tape, hot glue, and prayers. Like that's what's holding it together. Because I'm like, so we use a screwdriver, right? Like with a screw, and things happen. I don't know. I need a dad. Like I need a dad or a grandpa because I'm just like I don't know.
I'm gonna go back to the first part of that question, and where have you had the ability and not the willingness? Like I'll say for an example, being like the grade level chair, and we know that's more responsibility, but it wasn't that I just didn't want to, was I didn't have the time to dedicate to doing it and all that goes along with being willing to do it. So at the time, no, I was not willing to do it because I had so much going on. But if you ask me that now, yeah, I have the willingness to, but at that point in time, I didn't. So sometimes it just depends on what you have going on, for the most part, in my situation.
Right. I
See,
completely agree.
That's why, LaShonda, you're going to be like 3 times the administrator I am. Because for me, if I'm not interested, I don't care. Like paperwork, I hate paperwork. We're doing our social, right? And our kids are like, I need another paper, and I'm like, don't care, not social studies, Like that's something I need to work on. But it's like I'm just not willing. Like I don't want to take all of these little individual index cards with every student's name and write on their benchmark score. I don't want to. Like, no, like I'm sorry. Like this is gonna take me 45 minutes, and like frankly, this is a waste of time. Like we could put this in a spreadsheet. No, we need index cards so we can visually see it on the wall. And I'm like, no, waste. Okay. Moving on. As an administrative intern, have you had to discipline an individual? If so, what are some things that were mentioned? That you used.
Yeah, that I talked about, like the timely intervention, timing, and the keeping it private, and those kind of things.
I had this happen the other day. I
was
was
right
going to
with my questions, David, for you.
You're just like all of the questions. No. So yeah, I was in the coach's office, and I was going to a conference with a guy that I've worked with for like 4 or 5 years, and I was just going to spend the night at his house, right? Because it saved me like an hour's worth of drive before we drove 2 hours to the conference. And there was another teacher there, and he's like, "Hey, Roach, you ready for your slumber party tonight?" And this guy, this is his first year at our school, and I'm like, what do you mean slumber? Like why are you hating? Like why are you throwing shade at me? Right? Well, this is a problem. So I looked at him. He's like, "Yeah, ready for your slumber party?" And I was like, "Mr. So-and-so, let's call him Mr. Smith." I was like, "Mr. Smith, I respect you. I'm glad that you're here. I'm thrilled that you have all this type of stuff." Now, a lot of times there's a difference between how we come across and how we intend to come across, and I know that you're like calling me out because I'm like going to a slumber party, like I'm going to a conference. He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm just joking." I was like, and I understand that. However, like I may not know that. Do you see what I'm saying? Where not everybody might take it that way,
right.
And it's really none of your business. He's like, "Oh, okay," and then he did it again. And he's like, "Yeah, y'all gonna fire up the grill tonight, drink a couple beers?" And I was like, "That's definitely my business. And when it's your business, I'll tell you." Have a nice night. Like, and I felt like that was a really jerk thing to say, but at the same time, like, you're not getting the picture, home slice. Like, it's none of your business. I don't know. That might have been totally wrong.
Oh, gosh. That was funny. You're on step 3, give the employee a day off with pay.
Yeah.
After those 2 incidents.
Like, I thought about that, and I was like, I don't really think that's the best step to follow.
It's like, you didn't go to your duty 2 days in a row. Take Wednesday off. Yeah.
I mean, like,
all right.
That's just like you teaching a baby that it's okay to do certain things. But I mean, I just thought that was very kind of out the window. Like I've seen in my experience as an intern, with the warning the employee orally, like talking with them, and then having it in writing and it going in their folder, and then But I've never had my administration send somebody home with pay.
No.
With pay.
No.
And that raises a very interesting point. It's like, for me, I know this sounds like totally bananas, but I don't think that you should document that you discipline an employee unless you're trying to build a case for them to not be brought back. Because like, if you look at it from like this is going to sound bananas, but if you look at it from a religious perspective, like, we're all different people and we're all on a different walk, and we're all at different parts of that walk, if that makes sense. And it's our job as like coworkers and just generally good people to help people on their walk. Does that make sense? Because if there's a first year teacher who's struggling and I've warned him orally, right, but he's really struggling, and I put a letter in his file, is that going to be helpful for him? Or like, is it, like if they cuss a kid or if they say something completely inappropriate or tobacco, that type of thing, yeah, write a letter. But if it's one of those things where it's like, positive discipline, step 2 says, I need a letter in your file. And it's like, I'm sorry, I was late to work. Oh, this is the second time I've told you about it though. I think that, you have to, discretion is the better part of valor, like knowing when to fight what battles. Because I'm telling you, like, if I fail to send out progress reports on the day that they're due and you put a letter in my file over it, like, you have lost me as an employee.
And I
like,
think it depends on the situation. Like, there's something, okay, like that right there. If you didn't send progress reports, I've done that plenty of times. I've not sending progress reports home the day they were supposed to. But, like, some things where it's, I guess, putting the child in danger, maybe, or the welfare of the child, like, you're not.
You come to school drunk, you're high, you got alcohol on you, you punch a kid, you then just call the sheriff's department.
I was about to say, that's removal, dismissal, everything right there. See you later. Don't pick up your check at the end of the month.
Right.
So I think it just depends on the situation. How you just like with discipline, we have an infraction chart, and for Duplin County, so it tells you what level of offense they have, and then what infraction you give them. So that's kind of the thing with teaching. It depends on the level, what infraction you give them, and I'm pretty sure it's probably not going to be a day off.
Well, the other thing though, this book is written from like a business perspective, could be something.
It is.
Yeah, so, it could be when it says warn them orally and then warn them in writing. I think that might be like a note that says, hey, this is an official documentation, like, you messed up.
Right.
And then, but I think when you look at step 3, once again, I think it might be because I work with BTs or beginning teachers. Like, if a BT is like screwing up and they're like exhausted, and you can tell when beginning teachers aren't sleeping, they aren't taking care of themselves, they aren't eating like they need to, like they haven't had a haircut because their life is just falling apart, maybe instead of giving them the day off with pay, why don't you say like, hey, because I did this with a BT, like he had game duty and he was like about to like lose his stuff. I said, hey, look, I'll take your game duty, you go to Walmart, I want you to buy salad stuff or food, not pizza, food. Which you go buy food, go home, clean your kitchen, clean your apartment, and like, get ready. Because it was like a Friday game or something. So I think something like that where you're like, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm going to take this duty and you're going to go get yourself together.
Right.
So I think that might be sort of what it's aiming towards, as opposed to like, you messed up twice, have a day off of pay.
Yeah.
What's going to help you in the future.
Right. Next, let's see next one.
Are we ready? Okay. All right.
I'm having so much fun, guys. Oh, this is mine. Yay. Okay. Here we go. Positivity. Chapter 14, implementing. Okay. So chapter 14 deals with managing performance. So one of the big things they talk about when you're looking at managing performance is that, you kind of like your end goal should be on the bottom line. So when we think about students, the end goal is the education of those students. That's the bottom line. That's why we are here. That's why we come to work every day, is to ensure the education, the success of as many young people as we can. The second key thing, or this is the overview, excuse me, key things later, is that people are the most important aspect of any organization. This is like, if I could sum up what I want to do in administration, is people are the center and most important aspect. I'm having like epiphanies all over the place. This is great. Because when you reinforce the individual, and when the individual feels valued within an organization, they will do anything for you if they feel valued. Does that make sense? And it's not like manipulation or coercion, because I think that those sort of stray into this territory. But, you know, I know for me and a lot of teachers that I work with, like there's like no recognition. There's no like, I'm not talking about my name in the newsletter. I don't want my name in the newsletter. I want you to come by my classroom and say, wow, this is a really cool activity. And I feel like when you can focus on people's needs, God, Stacy, I'm so glad, and LaShonda, I'm so glad we had a conversation, because when you focus on the needs of the people and you can provide and fulfill that need, they're going to be a lot better off. Demonstrate the connection between strategy and individual performance. Cool. So this would be like the school's mission and vision statement, where you look at what are we trying to do as a school and what is your individual role in that? Because it's so great to have this, you know, students will become, you know, productive citizens in a 21st century global economy and yada, 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 yada. But like, how many teachers can say, you know what, I'm going to help prepare them with 21st century skills by doing this in my classroom? Like there's no connection. Right, and I think that's something we're like totally missing. Next slide, please. Yeah, key points. All right, so individual performance management. There are three key parts that we're looking at. We're looking at planning, we're looking at coaching, and we're looking at review. When we talk about planning, this is setting objectives and directions for achieving those objectives. Once again, becomes through empowerment, right? Because if I say, hey, you know, LaShonda, you know, you need to have 4 points of growth with your algebra kids, and you're like, I know this, like I need growth, of course, but it's also pairing that with the directions, right? And saying, this is what we're doing, this is how we're getting there, and boom, together, one thing. It's great. Coaching's super important. It's that day-to-day feedback aimed at like developing and enhancing performance, right? The idea is that, you know, this is why walkthroughs are so important, and why they can't take 15 minutes per class, because a principal should stick his head in your classroom every single day. Like, I think it's going to be like one of my goals. I know that's like super unrealistic, but is it really though? Like, can we do that? You know, if you're on the hall every single day and you're in every single teacher's classroom every single day, even if for 30 seconds, stick your head in. Yeah, everything's looking good. Have a nice day. I think that that's really good because it shows consistency, right? And consistency and fairness is very important, because when I feel like my principal is coming to my classroom 3 times in 1 week and he, like the other people are like, he's never on our hall, you know, that's that inconsistency, right? Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know, whatever. Review, overall evaluation of performance for the planning period. In education, this could be 1 year. So basically, you know, you set the plan, you coach, you review, you mentor, and then when you come to the review, you say, hey, did we meet our goals? Are you doing better? You know, and I think it's important that teachers are a part of this. Next thing, performance management via Achieve. So Achieve stands for ability, clarity, help, incentive, evaluation, validity, environment. This is like the holy grail of like, you know, of oh yeah, it's the holy grail of individual performance management, right? This is how you set up and structure exactly what you're doing. It's going to be fantastic. Performance coaching goes in with that because, you know, in education, so much we talk about, you know, better scores, I'm gesturing with my fingers, better scores all the time. But there's no like coaching, right? It's not, and there's not enough day-to-day like feedback to work towards it. It's like, oh, here's my once-a-year observation. Here comes the dog and pony show, you know, and out goes the dog and pony show, and I'm back to worksheets, right? You've got to have that consistency, especially when it comes to performance coaching. Next slide, please. All right, the takeaway. When it comes to performance management, keep the following in mind. When in business or management, people are the most important resource, right? And it's so funny because they'll tell you this in ed school and everybody thinks it's a bunch of baloney. You know, they don't care how much you, the kids don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. Adults are the same way. We discuss goals, have a framework, right? Have like, here's our vision and here's what we're doing to work with that. So you have to have that framework. One of the most important things that both organizations have goals and individuals have goals, and the two are not mutually exclusive. If you talk to some teachers and they're 100% brutally honest, they're going to say, my goal is to not get fired and get that paycheck. I'm doing those two things, my goal is met. And it's important to have strategic alignment between mission, vision, school goal, and like teacher goals. Like teachers need to feel like they can grow, they can develop, their career can get better, they can become more proficient educators, they can make more money, right? You need those alignment of goals. Otherwise, you're pulling in two different directions. If my goal as a teacher is to not work hard and get a paycheck, then I don't really care about having a better classroom. I care about having a classroom that doesn't suck enough to get me fired. I said suck. That's bad. It's suboptimal, put it that way. All right, discussion questions. I'm not going to answer these because I'm talking way too much. All right, as a leader, it's important to know your strengths and weaknesses. Which of the following would you consider to be a strength or a weakness? Planning, coaching, review. Go.
Let me move this on. Come into the phone, which could be a strength or which is weakness.
I think for me, it would probably be planning, because I'm a planner. I like things to be in order, and I like to know what's going on and what I need to do in the time frame, kind of thing.
Yeah. My weakness would be planning too. I guess my strength would probably be coaching.
Cool. All right. So this is a statement. So means, it says if your machine cannot be calibrated, if your computer program is flawed, if you cannot hire people you need, or if you do not have access to critical information, you can't do your job. These resources are quite literally the means to an end. The above statement discusses means. As an administrator, you will often not have access to all the means you desire. How can you work to overcome this? So what we're saying with that is, like, a lot of times you're going to have limited resources, limited budget. What's like one strategy that you can use to help adapt and overcome? Excuse me.
Well, I think you have to prioritize or I know everything's important, but you have to look at the big picture. What do our kids need the most, and put that on the top of your list of things that you might need, and kind of number it. And then, like, as the year goes on, say if you have a fundraiser, we're going to use this money from the fundraiser to pay for this, these resources that we need. So that's what we're actually doing in our school improvement team. We had a fundraiser, and we're using that maybe to buy some more technology for our students.
Yeah, and I see it as either find another way to get it done, or see what you can do with those resources that you have.
All right, David, we got 6 minutes. Just to let you know.
Okay, I'm gonna talk less. Okay, so chapter 15. So chapter 15 discusses the influences of situational leadership as it relates to good decision making and building commitments. Oh, commitments are super cool. Decision making is the core essence of leadership. I'm gonna read the slide. I'm not gonna talk. All right, commitments revolve around the interaction between the leader, the customer, the organization, the self, the people, and the task. Basically, when everything's like interconnected and everybody's committed to everything, then you have like a really strong spider web. But when everybody's trying to like branch out on their own and everything's not working together, it's going to be suboptimal. Next slide, please. Key points. Decisions are made in context, right? We sort of echoed that earlier this evening. The decision style can be classified as authoritative, consultative, facilitative, and delegative. Authoritative is, hey, this is the way we're going to do it. Consultative, hey, what do you think? I'm going to make the ultimate decision, but I want input. Give me input. Facilitative, hey guys, what do you want to do? Delegative, y'all figure it out. I don't care. Commitments, showing positive concern and recognition and encouraging innovative ideas. When you can do that, you get more out of people. Next slide, please. Okay, takeaways. Decision making. Consultative decision making is valuable when the manager recognizes that the followers also possess experience, right? So consultative is best when like other people are bringing things to the table. Authoritative decision-making is best when followers do not possess the ability, willingness, or confidence to help. So key thing on this, they have to have ability and willingness, right? If the person is not willing to participate in the decision-making process, they don't need to be a part of it. Facilitative decision-making is cooperative between the manager and the follower. Hey guys, let's work together. Delegative is delegative decision-making gives workers the power to make and execute the decision. Key point, they have to be given the power to make the decision and execute it, because then it's gonna be created and they're gonna follow through exactly how they intended. Next slide, please. Our discussion questions. What decision-making process are you most familiar with? What are your perceived strengths and weaknesses of each process? So when we look at like facilitative, authoritarian, like the ones on the previous slide.
Well, for me, probably I'm gonna go back one slide just to look. The weakness for me, the delegative, because I don't do a very good job of delegating decisions. I kind of, or not decisions, but different things that need to be done. I don't delegate. I kind of take it all on myself. But I kind of like where the consultative, where you can get the input from others, or doing the facilitative decision making. I'll go back. Okay.
So how about you, LaShonda? What decision-making process are you most familiar with? And like, what are your perceived strengths or weaknesses of that process?
I want to say, go back to slide, Stacey, if you don't mind. I want to say it was I would say the authoritative decision. When others don't want to do it, do not possess the ability, willingness, or confidence to help, if I'm saying this right. I guess that would be if I do it instead. If nobody else is willing to do it, I'm not willing to do it. I'm not sure if that's the correct one, but if nobody else has the willingness to do it, then I'll do it myself. Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, because authoritative doesn't always have to be like, hey, I'm the head honcho and I'm making the call. It's like, look, nobody else is making a decision. This is what we're going to do. All right, next one. In your opinion, what is the most important commitment? So there are a ton of commitments, but it's customer, organization, self, people, or task. So as a leader, what's the most important commitment to you? It's slide people. Okay. What do you think, Stacey?
People.
I would go with people.
I'm beginning to agree. Absolutely. You know,
I'm proud of you, Dave.
I'm growing so much. Holy cow. Do you guys want to, we got a minute 50. You want to hit pause and we'll just meet back?
Yeah, because this is your last chapter, right?
Yes, ma'am. This is the last one.
All right. I'm going to start recording.